Hey everyone, this is Hailey from Cartooners, and today I have some very exciting things to share with you. This has to do with the ThunderCats 2011 series, which was a reboot that aired a couple years back, and unfortunately, as many of you probably know, it only got one season and ended after 26 episodes, sadly. And it was really sad to learn from, the creators of the show that there was a lot more planned. They had so much more scripted, or they had the story into very fine details of what would happen in the series and how it would end. So that's pretty cool. And so for years, fans were wondering, okay, what happened with the series? And finally, just a few months ago, we learned the answers from art director Dan Norton, who in a podcast that was like 3 hours long pretty much, he revealed pretty much everything that happened, or the biggest points that happened in the series until it ended. For like, at least they had the next 26 episodes in mind. There might have been more after that, but that was pretty much it. And he revealed a lot of stuff, so I went over the whole thing and picked out, pretty much what happened, and without all that filler of them talking through all the stuff, everything else, because it was 3 hours. So hopefully this won't take 3 hours, but I mean, if you do have that time on your hands, go ahead and feel free to listen to that thing on SoundCloud, that podcast. I'll link it below, and it was great. So I do recommend that if you're a huge ThunderCats fan. So basically, today I'm going to talk about what would have happened in Season 2 of ThunderCats 2011, and there is just so much to talk about. It's unbelievable what would have happened, and I'm just really sad that it didn't happen. This show was airing, right as I was becoming a teenager, and, I don't know, I really loved it. I don't know, it was kind of like what Voltron is today for some people, the reboot. But I mean, I love Voltron too. It's just that ThunderCats always will hold a special place in my heart, even though I never saw the original series. Still haven't, so there's a lot of throwbacks to the original series and what would have happened in Season 2, and I would have not understood those, and I still don't. So forgive me if I get any of the details wrong. I'm just going off what they said, and I did a little bit of looking on the wiki, but that's all I could do. So first, let's go back to the Season 1 finale as a refresher. The animals, as you know, came together and went to help the ThunderCats face off against Mumra. And so that happened, and I guess, there was a big battle, and so not everyone survived that, so it was pretty, bad outlook there. But now beginning Season 2, Episode 1, I'm going to go through each of these by episode until he starts getting a little more vague, because they stopped really scripting the episodes a while down. So first, let's just go to Episode 1. There is actually a time skip. There's actually going to be 2 time skips in the season, apparently, which is pretty crazy because not too many cartoons do that. The only one I can think off the top of my head is Legend of Korra, that, time skips didn't happen in between series. Sometimes they more often happen between seasons, like now. But between series, I can see that happening, but between seasons or even between episodes, that is very rare for cartoons, I'd have to say. They don't usually change around time too much. But, so yeah, there's a time skip, and it's been a while. And the survivors of the battle are looking for a new home since Thundera has been destroyed, which is like pretty much the place where all the ThunderCats live. I guess it was like the whole domain of where all of these different kinds of animal creatures lived. But Mumra keeps chasing them, and Lino constantly needs to be saving these animals. And, this wears all of the forces down of these, these good animals, while Mumra just keeps getting stronger, and the power balance is in Mumra's favor. So when we finally get to see Lino again, he is older and bulkier, so I guess, they're trying to make him, more how he was in the original series, after, like, the first episode, which would be really interesting to see, that they just did a time skip like this. But, I mean, I guess that was what they were going for in the end. I don't know, I was expecting Lino to kind of stay like how he was in Season 1, but we're gonna see him. We would have seen him older and bulkier, as I said. He has new armor and a bigger mane, which would have been cool to see. So he wants to find these animals a new home. And of course Tigra is still there, and he still wants to be king because he thinks Lino is still incompetent. And then there's also Panthro, who tells Lino that Mumra's lair has a bunch of thunder takes that would give them the advantage in this war. But, the other animals have decided to leave Lino, so they pretty much have nobody on their side now, and they want to join Mumra since he has food and technology, which will, so they can finally live again, not just be barely surviving. And Lino is, of course, mad about this. So he just ends up climbing a mountain, and then Jaga, the cleric, comes to him, and he tells him to be a proper leader. Probably a lot more than that, but that's what the gist of that was. And then we also see Wily Kit and Wily Cat get caught in a trap by Mumra, but Lion-O saves them, and he mentions that Lion-O would have come up with the Code of Thundera from the 1985 series, and along with the symbols on the Red Crescent armor during this time. And I guess with the Code of Thundera, the animals decide to join back onto Lion-O's side, and Lion-O takes the Sword of Omens and strikes the mountain they are stuck in. Oh, I guess since they all got stuck there. And he forms a force field to save all the animals. I guess, everyone was stuck there, even Wily Kit and Cat, maybe. I think that might have been it too. Everyone was in there. And then with this new formation, the animals now have a place to put Thundera. So everyone is reunited, and they get supplies. They end up getting supplies from the Forever Bag, which includes everything the raccoon took it stole. Then let's go to episode 2. And we get to see the Burbles again. And the Burbles would make the new Thundera technology much more advanced than the old one. But this tech is not enough, so Panthro still plans to steal Mumra's technology to give them an advantage, and the Burbles end up following him even though he tells them not to. And he also tells Lion-O not to follow him. He's like, you're not worthy or whatever, or something like that. And he says he needs to be there for his people, which does make sense. We would then get some flashbacks of when Panthro was trapped in the pyramid after Grun's betrayal, and we see that Panthro broke his leg and had to survive in this horrible place for 5 years. So Panthro uses the knowledge of his previous time there to go around this time, and while walking around the pyramid, they go past an area where there's a broken container. It turns out that this has to do with Snarf's origins. So I believe in the episode where we got a flashback, a very long ago flashback of Leo, who is Lion-O's ancestor, we saw Leo open Snarf's cage, and Snarf stepped on some wires, and it brought down Mumra's ship. It brought it down to Third Earth, and we saw there that pretty much Snarf is indestructible and has been around forever. This actually ends up turning out that the ThunderCats were created due to genetic experiments by Mumra by using a drop of Snarf's blood and mixing it with his own. So essentially, Snarf is the father of all ThunderCats, and all the other animal species Mumra made were created to help him conquer planets. So we pretty much learned about Snarf, which is pretty interesting. I was not expecting that. I don't know. So Snarf is related to Lion-O somehow. I guess that's how it happened. So going back to, the present. So Panthro and the Burbles find the Thunder Tanks, and the Burbles are able to remote control them. But Mumra attacks back with his Storm Charger, which I guess is one of his ships or something he uses to attack with. And Robot Bill becomes a true warrior and sacrifices himself to save Panthro and ensure the heroes would have the advantage Panthro planned. This stops Mumra for a bit, leading us to episode 3, where we learn about Linkso and Slythe and how they come to hate each other. So if you remember in the original series, General Linkso is he's the general of the ThunderCats army, and he's also blind. So he becomes a prisoner of war by the Lizardmen and tries to escape. But Tigra and Panthro eventually get him, which is great. And then we see Slythe talking to Mumra. And we also see that Pumaira is also there, who has been a great asset to Mumra because she, has tricked a lot of the ThunderCats, as we saw in the original, we saw in the season 1. And she wants more power to destroy her enemies for good. And Slythe, on the other hand, has been failing a lot. So we get a flashback of Slythe back when he lived in a lizard village, and they have this thing every year called the Great Hunt, where the lizardmen have a huge hunt and bring back food, while the women go to the marshes and gather the hatchlings. So while this is happening, the Great Hunt years ago, we see that Claudius, the king of the ThunderCats, tells Linkso to capture the swampland to have more land. So Linkso went to clear the ground, but he doesn't know the lizard babies and women are there. So essentially he kills all of them without actually knowing he did so. It just, like I said, just happens. And he's just like, and then Slythe, of course, hates Linkso now because his whole family is gone. Pretty much everyone he knew. So that was pretty sad. And so we kind of feel sympathetic for Slythe almost there. And he believes that the ThunderCats deserve to pay for all that they have done over the years, and since he has nothing left. And then one day, Mumra says he can help Slythe, so they form an alliance. Slythe essentially sells out his people to get vengeance on the ThunderCats. And now back to the present. Slythe's battles against Linkso, Tigra, and Panthro. Panthro and Tigra are forced to leave without Linkso since Tigra gets injured. So then Linkso has to fight this giant lizard mech Slythe is controlling, but this time around Slythe shows no mercy and kills Linkso. And then in the 4th episode, it would have given spotlight to Chitara and her status as the last cleric. Lino tells her to train people to become new clerics, but she is hesitant to do so. So Lino tells her to tap into the Book of Omens like he did so she can talk to Jaga, but before she can do so, this snow leopard comes in and steals the book. The leopard challenges her to a race to get it back, but she can't catch up and loses him. And later she finds out Lino is talking to the snow leopard, who will be the teacher Lino wanted, or I guess that's what the snow leopard offered. And he was revealed to be a former student of Jaga's, who is extremely fast and abuses his powers. In a flashback, we learn more about Chitara's past. This includes how we would have learned that Chitara blames herself for her grandma's death because of her slow speed to deliver medicine. She's a good runner since she is running from her past essentially. And thinking about her past causes her to run super fast and fast enough to break the dimensions of time and space, and is able to speak to Jaga again without these look. So this all happened really quickly, like I just said. That's how I said it. But basically, went back into the present. I guess she started thinking about her past, and this caused her to, kind of go really, really fast. And it's revealed that she has weights on her legs to hold her down from doing this all the time. And now that she is no longer held back from her past, she can now see different points in time. And like her 1985 series counterpart, Chitara gains the ability to see into the future. And the future does not look pretty, as she tells Tigra. So she becomes a new Jaga, essentially, and she offers to help the snow leopard learn more, and he becomes her first student. So it's a pretty happy ending of the episode. Now on to episode 5, which is, we don't know too much about. It's very short. This one centers on Jaga and the Book of Omens. His spirit resides in the astral plane along with Grun, who has Panthero's arms attached to him, and Grun has become the ghost warrior from the 85 series, which makes him a monster. He wants to destroy the ThunderCats, so he goes where Jaga is. So the ThunderCats go into the astral plane to fight Gruff Grun, and Grun would also end up stealing the blue power stone, which is the soul stone. That's all we know about that one. And now let's go to episode 6. So this one brings us back to the kittens, and during the time skip we see that Kit has been living with the elephants and has become their queen. She is now a bit more grown up, and so is Cat, they act like teenagers. And while she was doing that, Cat became the King of Thieves. While she was living with the elephants, he became the King of Thieves, so they both play in their parts. She was pretty much like the Elephant Queen, like I mentioned, so that's pretty cool. Queen and King of respective thing that they enjoyed, or people they enjoyed being with, I guess. So this episode would have shown some flashbacks to explain how the kittens acquired their items, the Flink and the Floop. And they did this when they were in the maze of Baron Carnor from the original series and obtained the items. The Floop was stuck in this canyon and created this continually moving maze, which they eventually grabbed the Floop and were able to, stop the maze, and they got the items. And so after this episode, things kind of start going out of order, they didn't have this one scripted down to like number 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. So this is just me a little more general starting from now on. And we actually would have got to learn about why Third Earth is named Third Earth. So turns out First Earth was around the time when Mum-Ra first came down and ascended onto the Earth, and then the second time was the second time he did so. And actually in the second time, humans were around the first being like dinosaurs, and when he came back for the third time, it's now called Third Earth. So that explains the naming. And actually, it turns out that humans are the base for all the animals they created. I'm not 100% sure, but there might have been some humans like very later on in the series, but there definitely were humans on this Earth because it is our Earth, just, in the future, I guess. So in this universe, the sun starts to radiate and becomes unstable. So it pushes Earth out of its orbit and it becomes a moon of Jupiter. So that's why we see in the background of the series that there is Jupiter, and this causes new creatures to evolve as well. And he also mentions that there would be this united universe, which included the Silverhawks and Tiger Sharks, also other shows with animal creatures. So Monstar from Silverhawks would find the Eye of Thundera and put it up for ransom, and Mum-Ra buys it from him and turns on him. A bit of the sword chips off into his eye, and he transforms, and he gets his armor. So that's just a side note. And the Silverhawks were from the time of Second Earth, and would have met the ThunderCats through a rift in time to chase after Mum-Ra. The Silverhawks and the Tiger Sharks were also allies that would join in during the final battle. So here is how the Tiger Sharks play into the story. We would get to see the Balkans, who would look like fishermen that lived in huts. There's this troll creature that is coming after them, and they ask for aid from the ThunderCats. but the Thundercats need this bell that gets rid of the fog in that area to face him. So Lion-O faces the troll, who turns out to be blind, and ends up falling off a cliff because he hears a chime and goes in that direction. So a very sad ending for that troll, but it needed to be done, unfortunately. And then the Thundercats go underground and meet some tiger sharks, and we get to learn their story. They would also get a power stone after meeting them, apparently. I don't know how that works out, but because they didn't really specify on which one or how or what, but that apparently happened. So at the end of the first 13 episodes, we see that there is going to be a battle against Mumra as he attempts to get the stones back. And he eventually does, and once that happens, he uses the power stones to power up his pyramid, and one of its powers is turning sand into a black mist and releasing it within a chamber that turns whoever breathes it into a more powerful but more monstrous form. And of course, Pumara learns about this, and she wants to, use it to her advantage because it will give her the power to destroy the Thundercats. And once she, inhales the mist, she becomes this kind of monstrous form where she's part insect. So she goes after Lion-O, who wants to save her, of course, because he had, feelings for her at one point, and he thinks, there is good in her still. But Tigra does not think this, and he eventually does kill her. So that's an ending for Pumara's story. Then Lion-O decides he needs to become even stronger to defeat Mumra. If he could not even defeat, Pumara, how is he going to possibly defeat Mumra? So the 13 episodes ends from the set of 26 episodes with Lion-O entering the Book of Omens to train some more. Of course, Tigra doesn't like this idea, so Lion-O actually ends up making Tigra a chance, the king of Thundera. And so Tigra finally gets a chance to prove himself and his worth, and, that would have, been the end of the first 13 episodes. But there was 13 more planned, so let's get into that right now and see what else would have happened after Lion-O emerges from the book. So, also, I need to mention, kind of in between this, that there were going to be a bunch of characters that they would be bringing back from the original series. They were going to reintroduce Mandora, and there would be Hachiman, who learned how to fight from a group of roach people and have a sword created by the Drifter. There would be the Conquistador, who would have been revealed to be Safari Joe from the 1985 series, and also the Lunatics would have appeared as well. So this would have happened when Mumra battles the ancient spirits of evil to control his own destiny, and the Lunatics are the ones he finds to go after the Thundercats during this time, apparently. So now let's talk about the final 13 episodes of Season 2, what would have happened with those, and some pretty cool stuff happens. So, Lion-O would emerge from the Book of Omens 10 years later, and he is absolutely ripped, apparently. He's like Conan the Barbarian, as they said, and he is huge, and he has a huge mane as well. So, yeah, he's kind of even stronger than his father was, so that would have been really crazy to see. I don't know if I would have been like okay with how he looked. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but maybe some people would like that. I don't know. If you get too buff, I think it's a bit weird. But, this is the original series made really buff characters, so I guess it's understandable. So, in the meantime, Mumra has been, crushing the Thundercats essentially time after time under Tigra's rule. And, something really interesting is that during this time, Tigra and Chitara had a son who turns out to be Bengali. So that's how they would have brought Bengali into the series. And, Lion-O finally gets to meet him for the first time, because this is pretty much almost a 10-year-old kid who has never met his uncle, and Lion-O didn't even know he existed. So that's pretty crazy. And, of course, we also get to see Wily Kid and Cat, who are also older. And, as it so happens, since Wily Kid is older and a female, Lion-O starts getting feelings for her. And, at least she's always been supportive of him. And Dan Norton did reveal at the end of the podcast that eventually she does become his queen, or the queen of, the Thundercats, and, they rule together as king and queen. So, back to Mumra's army. The pyramid comes out of the sand and starts moving towards where the Thundercats are, and it takes pretty much all the 13 episodes to get to where they are. And, the Thundercats see this, and they realize that they need the Soul Stone, who, Groon currently has. The Groon currently is in possession of the Soul Stone, so they can fortify their lair. And apparently the Soul Stone turned out to be an Eldara, which is actually a dimension in Limbo. And Wily Kid and Cat's parents are there as well. So, that explains Eldara. So it's interesting it does exist. That's cool. I knew it always would. And the Thundercats would face off against Groon again to reclaim this stone, and Panthro would reclaim his arms from Groon, which now have an ability known as Astral Punch. This punch can, punch through dimensions pretty much, which is pretty cool. So, after this last confrontation with Grun, Mumra would steal the Soul Stone, but Slide would betray him and give the stone to Lino and be killed by Mumra in retaliation. The lizard men then join forces with Lino so they don't get transformed into those monstrous bug monsters. Mumra goes to kill Lino with the Sword of Plundar, but I guess this is very at the end of the series, Tigra gets hit instead. He takes the hit actually. He's invisible and then he steps in front of Lino and dies instead. But before that, he tells Lino that he was always meant to be king, as in Lino was meant to be king, not Tigra. That'd be kind of mean to say when you're dying, but so that really makes Lino want to be Mumra. He's like, this is it, it's time. So then later, the final battle would show all of the ThunderCats allies answering Lino's battle cry, and we would see that the Drifter would return all the swordsmen, and a bunch of other characters, so many characters. And there's of course a huge battle, but eventually Lino strikes Mumra down, and Mumra's bandage would fly off into the wind. And that pretty much ends the story for this series. However, there is an epilogue which would show that peace has returned to Third Earth, and the Cat's Lair is restored. The Power Stones are able to revive Tigra in one version. They actually made another version where he wasn't able to be revived, and instead these stones were able to bring back statues of the other past kings, like we saw in episode 1 probably, and there would even be a statue dedicated to Tigra because he was one of the best kings there ever was of Thunder. And so the final scene would show the bandage from the final battle landing on a face of an innocent animal herder in the desert, which forcibly mummifies him and buries him underground in the desert. So perhaps Mumra would live on. So that pretty much ends it for the story, even in the epilogue. But they did mention that all the powers of the characters, how they would, evolve over the course of the series, and what powers they would get. So for Chitara, her staff would get the ability to become a giant tree and could jump through the branches. She could jump through branches and use them as weapons. And same for the leaves that grew on the branches. Also, like they mentioned, her super speed, where she can run through moments in time. Then we get Wily Kit to get to Wily Kit, and let's have some backstory on this one. So basically what happens is that there's a person playing a guitar in the woods and starts attracting a large crowd of children. Suddenly, they start turning old as he begins to suck the life out of them. The ThunderCats find the kids, and Kit and Cat are attracted to the noise. However, Kit ends up fighting this vampire man, I guess, and she creates a turntable with the flute that moves around and makes beats that let her control people. So that's how she, her flute kind of evolved in a sense. Very interesting. She's like a DJ now. That's kind of weird in this universe, but anything can go, I guess. And so then on to Wily Cat. His flank gets leveled up and it becomes a super claw, and it can basically, he can throw it, it can move around like a frisbee, and also he gets more traps and different chemicals to use to it as weapons. And then Tigra, and we see that his whip and bracelet could combine to form a lance, and he also have a gun that allowed him to be a sniper. So, and then we also learn more about Lino. I guess Panther didn't get anything else, or nothing too important to note. But that pretty much was all the notes I took. That was pretty much everything they mentioned in that big old 3-hour podcast that I condensed into, about 25 minutes or so. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. Sadly, Dan Norton mentioned that there is pretty much no chance of the show returning and season 2 happening because, rights to the shows and getting all the people back that created this version of the show would be nearly impossible, he said, which is really, really sad because I would have loved to get season 2 because honestly, all this is just amazing. You don't see a lot of most of what was explained in season 2, what would have happened. We don't see stuff like that almost at all, in current cartoons. Just a couple things here or there, but have all this combined would have been amazing, I think. So it's truly, I was truly devastated to learn that, there's no real chance of this coming back, but at least, we have our nice 26 episode season 1, and now we finally have closure to the series. So guys, let me know what you think. Did you watch ThunderCats? Did you have any idea what I'm talking about? Did you watch the original series? Are you a super fan, so you've seen everything? Or did you just watch the 2011 series like I did and were sad to learn that, it did get canceled, and you know, season 2 had a lot of potential to it. So let me know your comments and thoughts down below. Make a comment. I'll also probably link my notes if this was a bit confusing. My notes might help clear up anything, because I wrote decently detailed notes for this that I used as kind of a script, a rough script there. So I'll link that below as well. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, because sometimes I do random cartoon stuff like this whenever big news comes up. Sadly, this might be my only ThunderCats video ever, unless they make another reboot or a miracle happens and the you know, this series continues on once again. But you never know. Anything could happen, but probably not too many ThunderCats videos coming out in the future. I just love ThunderCats, so I really wanted to talk about this, even though I know not too many people are ThunderCats fans, because it released a while ago, so all the fans kind of dispersed onto other things like, you know, Voltron or other shows like kind of similar, you know. So make sure to subscribe, and if you want to see more videos, like long videos like this, make sure to become a patron on our Patreon channel. We are currently having, you know, polls every week to decide what video I should make. Besides this, I just decided to do this news video kind of randomly after learning about this. This has actually been like 2 months. This podcast has been out, but I did not know about it until like a few days ago. So this is great. Yeah, so if you want to see more like videos like this, please be sure to become a patron if you would like to, and also you know, just also hit the notification button, the little bell icon, so you can get notified of any new videos, especially like Senior, Star Force of Evil, OKKO, and a couple others like Miraculous, Ladybug, and of course Voltron. So I'll see you guys then, and thank you for watching.